Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at trauma recovery.
Yeah.
Specifically, how trauma can linger in the body long after the event itself.
Right.
And we've got some audio excerpts this time from The Body Keeps the Score
Yeah.
by Bessel Kolk.
It's a good one.
And honestly, this book is really making me rethink how we approach healing.
I can see why.
Yeah, it's like we always just assume, you talk about trauma
Right.
and you process it mentally.
Yeah,
But these excerpts are really showing that the impact goes so much deeper.
absolutely. Trauma really disrupts how the brain and the body process things. Emotions, sensations, even our sense of self.
Yeah.
Van der Kolk actually gives this example of veterans with PTSD.
Okay.
And there was this study where they struggled to name simple words.
Really?
Their brains were so overloaded with that trauma response
Wow.
that it affected basic cognitive function.
It's kind of scary to think about all the ways trauma can impact us without us even realizing it. I mean, if it can affect us on a cognitive level like that,
Right.
it makes you wonder how much we're missing by just focusing on the mental side of things.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Like, some people can describe their trauma clearly, but they still feel totally overwhelmed by it.
Exactly. And that's because the body hasn't let go.
Hmm.
Even if the mind understands what happened,
So it's like a disconnect.
it gets trapped in the nervous system.
Wow.
Leading to chronic pain,
Right.
hyperarousal,
Yeah.
even physical issues that are often misdiagnosed.
Because doctors aren't necessarily looking for that root cause.
Exactly.
It's funny. I've always thought of like my body's reaction to stress as just stress.
Yeah.
Tense muscles, racing heart.
Right.
I just thought that was my body doing its thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm thinking, what if those are signs of my body holding on to that experience?
It's possible.
Even on a small scale.
Yeah.
Imagine what happens with like a major traumatic event. It completely changes how we need to think about recovery.
It does. Van der Kolk really drives that point home throughout the book.
Okay.
It's not just about processing thoughts and memory.
Right.
We need to address those physical responses, those sensations that are trapped in the body.
Which brings us to the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
I remember learning about it in like biology class.
Right.
But I never really connected it to trauma recovery before.
It's such a critical part of understanding the mind-body connection.
Okay.
What's fascinating is that 80% of the vagus nerve fibers
Wow.
run from the body to the brain, meaning the state of our body directly influences our mental and emotional state.
So you literally can't think your way out of trauma.
Nope.
Your body has to be on board too.
Exactly.
And that's where all those alternative therapies come in, right?
Right. The things that go beyond just talking about it.
Yeah, like yoga.
Exactly. The book suggests exploring things like that.
Yoga. It's not the first thing that comes to mind when I think of trauma recovery.
I know, right?
But I guess it makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
All that emphasis on breath work
Mm-hmm.
and mindful movement,
Yeah,
it can help regulate the nervous system
it does.
and restore a sense of control,
Right.
which feels so crucial for anyone dealing with trauma.
It is.
It's like you're teaching your body to calm down and feel safe again.
Exactly. There's actually a study mentioned in the book where yoga practice significantly reduced PTSD symptoms
Really?
in patients who hadn't found relief with other treatments.
Wow, that's impressive.
It is.
So then there's EMDR,
Yeah.
using eye movements to process traumatic memories.
Right.
I mean, how could moving your eyes possibly help with something as complex as trauma?
It almost sounds like science fiction,
It does.
but the book actually explains the science behind it.
Okay.
It talks about how the rapid eye movements we experience during REM sleep might play a key role in how we process memories.
Interesting.
And EMDR seems to mimic that process,
Wow.
helping reprocess memories in a way that reduces their emotional charge.
So it's like EMDR is tapping into the brain's natural way of healing itself during sleep.
That's a good way to put it.
That's incredible.
It is.
And there's a case study in the book
Right.
about a woman named Kathy
Yeah.
who went through EMDR
Uh-huh.
and experienced incredible healing.
Yeah.
But what really struck me was that she didn't even have to talk about the trauma directly.
That's one of the things that makes it so powerful, especially for those who find it too overwhelming to talk about their experiences.
Right.
It allows you to process those sensations and emotions without having to put them into words.
So what about people for whom even thinking about their trauma is really difficult?
That's a really good question.
Is there still hope for them to heal?
There is, and that's something we'll delve into as we continue this deep dive.
Okay.
The book offers some fascinating insights into how that can be done.
All right, well, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and explore that further. It's like
Yeah.
we've been conditioned to believe that just talking about things is the solution.
Right.
But when it comes to trauma,
Yeah.
it's clearly not that simple.
It's not.
I'm even starting to wonder if, like, staying silent about it could actually make things worse.
You're hitting on a really important point there.
Hmm.
The book actually talks about how silence can be incredibly damaging.
Especially around trauma.
Exactly. There's this slogan from the early AIDS awareness campaigns,
Okay.
silence equals death.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
And it's true when you think about it.
Yeah.
When we keep trauma bottled up,
Mm-hmm.
are we kind of silencing a part of ourselves?
Exactly. And that silence often reinforces the isolation that trauma creates.
Mm.
The book emphasizes how just being able to tell another human being,
Yeah,
this is what happened to me,
right.
can be a powerful step towards healing.
I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like naming the experience
Mm-hmm.
gives you back a sense of control. Like you're reclaiming your power from something that felt so overwhelming.
Absolutely.
But what about those who just can't find the words?
You're right. Sometimes language just doesn't feel adequate
Yeah.
to truly express what we've gone through.
It's hard to put those experiences into words.
It is. Kolk talks about this in the book.
Okay.
How simply telling the story of what happened
Right.
doesn't guarantee that the memory will be laid to rest.
So there's more to it than just getting it out there.
There is. He makes this important distinction
Okay.
between how we remember ordinary events
Uh-huh.
and how we remember trauma when
Yeah.
we remember something normal.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily relive all the sensations and emotions that went with it.
Right. It's just a memory.
Exactly. But with trauma,
Yeah.
the memory can come flooding back.
Oh.
The images, the
Yeah.
sounds, the physical feelings.
Like you're right back in that moment.
Exactly. It's like the trauma is living in our bodies.
Not just our minds.
Right. And that's where those alternative therapies can help.
To access those deeper levels.
Exactly. And to really understand how those therapies work.
Okay.
It helps to understand the concept of the dual awareness system
Okay.
that Kolk explains in the book.
Right.
We basically have two different forms of self-awareness. The first is our autobiographical self,
Okay.
the one that keeps track of the self across time,
Really?
rooted in language.
Our story.
Exactly. And then there's a moment-to-moment self-awareness,
Okay.
which is based more in physical sensations.
So like a deeper truth that our bodies are holding on to.
Exactly. And often those two stories don't match up.
Oh, wow.
Someone might talk about having a happy childhood
Right.
while their body's radiating tension and anxiety.
It's almost like they're telling two different stories.
It is, and it's only by getting in touch with those physical sensations, those gut feelings,
Yeah.
that we can start to bridge that gap.
Between the story we tell and the truth, our body remembers, which is where those alternative therapies we were talking about come in.
Right, things like yoga and EMDR.
Yeah.
They're not just about talking.
It's about feeling and moving and expressing ourselves in ways that go beyond words.
Exactly. The book even talks about writing as a way to process those feelings.
Oh, yeah.
There's this research about expressive writing,
Okay.
where people write about their traumatic experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been shown to have a really profound impact on both mental and physical health.
Even if you never share it with anyone.
Even then, just putting those feelings into words can help you process them.
It's like you're getting past that inner censor,
Exactly.
that voice that might stop you from saying those things out loud.
Right.
And it makes me think about all the other forms of creative expression that could be helpful.
Definitely.
Art, music, dance.
Yeah. They all offer a language beyond words. You're absolutely right. Those forms of expression allow us to tap into emotions and experiences that might be too difficult or overwhelming to articulate.
And they give a voice to the unspeakable.
They do. There's a quote from the book that really struck me.
Okay.
The capacity of art, music, and dance to circumvent the speechlessness that accompanies terror
Wow.
may be one reason they are used as trauma treatments in cultures around the world.
It's not just about finding the right words.
It's about finding a way to communicate your truth however you can.
But I also wonder, is there a danger in focusing too much on the individual experience?
That's interesting.
Doesn't healing also require connection with others?
That's a great point. It's not just about individual expression.
Right.
There's also power in communal rhythms and synchrony.
Okay.
Kolk describes a group therapy session in South Africa where the setting was incredibly tense, violence happening outside, the air thick with tear gas.
Oh, wow.
And the women in the group were completely frozen, traumatized. And then one woman started humming and another joined in.
Okay.
And before long, the whole group was singing and dancing.
That's a really powerful image.
It is.
Like they found their way back to themselves.
Exactly.
With those shared rhythms and movements.
It was a powerful transformation. The shared rhythm, the collective movement, it helped them reconnect with their bodies, with each other.
Right.
With a sense of aliveness that the trauma had stolen.
And it speaks to the power of communal healing.
It does.
But even with all these possibilities,
Yeah.
the book doesn't shy away from the limits of language, does it?
Not at all. It dives into the idea that sometimes even with the best intentions,
Right.
words can fail us.
There just aren't words to describe what happened.
Exactly. It quotes Paul Fussell,
Okay.
who wrote about the zone of silence that trauma creates. This gap between the enormity of the experience and the language we have to describe it.
And sometimes even listening to someone else's trauma story can be too much.
It can.
It can trigger our own unresolved experiences or just overwhelm us with the sheer intensity of the emotions.
Yeah, it's a lot to carry.
So how do we find that balance between sharing and protecting ourselves?
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
It comes down to finding a responsive community.
Okay.
A safe space where we can tell our truth
Right.
without fear of judgment or rejection.
Or a support group or a therapist's office.
Exactly. Or even a close friend who understands.
It's about finding the right people to hear those words.
It is about creating a space where we can feel seen, heard, and understood.
Even in the face of the unspeakable.
Exactly.
But where do we go from there? How do we actually begin to inhabit our bodies again?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is after such a profound disconnect.
Right. What are some practical steps we can take
Yeah.
to bridge that gap and start feeling safe in our own skin again?
I don't know. It just feels like such a huge task to go from feeling so disconnected to feeling safe and at home in your own body.
It's definitely a journey.
Yeah.
And there's no one right way to do it.
Right.
But the book does offer some practical places to start.
Okay.
Like EMDR, the therapy we talked about.
The one with the eye movements?
Yeah.
It felt a little out there to me at first.
I know it sounds strange,
It does.
but it can be incredibly powerful.
Especially for people who just can't talk about what happened.
Exactly. It seems to activate this whole web of sensations, emotions, images, thoughts,
Yeah.
all connected to the original trauma memory.
Right.
And it helps to kind of loosen those stuck patterns,
For-
allows the brain to process things in a healthier way.
So it's not reliving the trauma over and over.
Right.
It's more like EMDR helps to integrate those fragmented memories,
Exactly.
putting a trauma in the past.
Yeah, and it's interesting the connection to REM sleep,
Oh, yeah.
how our eyes move rapidly back and forth when we dream.
Like our brains are working through things even when we're asleep.
That's right. And those eye movements might be a key part of how we process memories during sleep. And EMDR seems to mimic that process, tapping into the brain's natural healing mechanisms.
It's like giving our brains a guided tour through those trauma memories.
Yeah, a way to reprocess and integrate those experiences.
But what about people who need a more hands-on approach? The book also talked about befriending the body.
Right. Remember Annie?
Oh, yeah.
The woman who worked with special needs children?
Yeah, she had that really tough childhood.
But she did.
And nothing seemed to help.
She tried everything.
Yeah.
Therapy, medication.
And it just wasn't enough.
It wasn't it, but her story is a great example of how powerful body-based therapies can be.
Like yoga.
Exactly. Yoga was a turning point for her. It allowed her to connect with herself in a whole new way.
Like she could finally listen to those sensations and emotions she'd been ignoring.
Right. And it wasn't just about relaxation.
It was about more than that.
It helped her cultivate a sense of control.
Over her body.
Yes, and her responses.
Which is so important because trauma can make you feel so helpless.
Absolutely. Reclaiming that sense of agency is essential for healing.
And it's not just emotional.
Right. No, it's not.
Trauma gets stuck in the body too.
It does.
All that chronic pain, muscle tension.
Yeah.
Even those weird aches and pains that doctors can't explain.
It's like our bodies are keeping score.
Just like the book says.
Exactly. And that's where these body-based therapies can help. Like yoga with its focus on the breath.
Right.
And calming the nervous system.
It's like teaching your body how to feel safe again.
It is. Are there any other body-based therapies you're curious about?
Yeah. I mean, besides yoga.
Well, the book mentions a whole range of them.
Okay.
Massage, Feldenkrais,
Oh.
even martial arts.
Wow.
All of these practices can help release that stored trauma.
And help you feel more whole.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you.
You know, it's amazing to think about how much more there is to healing
Right.
than we usually consider.
It really is a holistic journey.
Yeah, it's not just about talking. It's about feeling and moving and expressing yourself
It's about reclaiming our bodies.
and learning to feel at home in our own skin.
You said it perfectly.
Wow, we've covered so much in this deep dive.
We have from the science of trauma.
All these alternative therapies.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. What stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
For me, it's that trauma recovery is a process.
Not a destination.
Exactly. There's no quick fix.
Right.
And what works for one person might not work for another.
So you have to be patient.
You do, and explore different approaches and celebrate those small victories along the way.
And never give up hope.
Never.
This deep dive has really given me a whole new perspective on healing.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I hope it's done the same for our listeners.
Me too.
Thank you for joining us. And remember, there's always hope. Healing is possible.
It is.
And it starts with understanding.